So the next part is making the chouxcroute or sauerkraut, which is, as I said, is a pickled cabbage dish really. And I want a really good amount of butter in there. The reason being that is I want the cabbage to be really moist. I want it to have a buttery flavour, and it just gives it a really good flavour. So we're melting the butter really gently, and we can put the cabbage in, and we're going to cook it really slowly. Okay, so we made some Savoy cabbage last week, if you remember, and we cooked it quite quickly. This wants to be a slow cooking method. So I'm going to keep this on probably for about 20, maybe 30 minutes even. And the first step of it is just to sweat down this cabbage, and in with it I'm going to put our brunoise of vegetables as well. So as I said, I've got celeriac, I've got swede, and I've got some carrot as well. So once I've got everything in there, then I can make sure that I've got it all coated in the butter, and I'm going to take it away from this hottest part of the stove, and I'm going to move over to the cooler part of the stove where this can cook a little bit more slowly and just wilt down until the cabbage is really soft. So this cabbage has been on for about 20 minutes now, cooking really slowly, and as you can probably see, it's wilted right down. So I'm going to add the liquids into there now. So I've just got some apple cider vinegar, and I've got some white wine vinegar as well, and also I've got some coarse grain mustard. Now if you didn't have coarse grain mustard, you could use some mustard seeds as well. They'd be really good in this as well. We're going to make sure that's mixed in really well. And the next part of this is just reducing down that vinegar really slowly, and I mean slowly, don't put it on a really high heat, so that we're just left with a slightly damp cabbage mixture. Once I've reduced it down, then I can decide whether I'm going to season it at all or not. Okay, so no seasoning until I've reduced it down. So on this tray here, I've cut out some rectangles of greaseproof paper, and just using some clarified butter, just brush them really well so that they don't curl up, so that our potato doesn't stick to them, and so that they stick to the tray. Okay, so it will peel off obviously, but I just want it flat on the tray to start off with. So the next step is trimming the potato, and I want to trim it so that it's cylindrical like this, okay, because I think they've stopped growing potatoes that grow like this, cylindrical, so I've got to trim it. So the way I've done that is I've trimmed the ends off, and then I'm going to sit it up on its ends, and I'm going to square it off. And it's a little bit wasteful, is this, I have to say, and ideally I would probably use some smaller new potatoes, but they aren't available just at the moment, so I'm going to use this way of doing it, which is just as good, but like I said, sort of slightly wasteful. And all I'm doing is trimming the corners off. I've trimmed it square to start off with, and then I'm just going to keep trimming off the corners until I end up with a cylinder. And it just takes a little bit of patience to get to that stage where I keep trimming and trimming, and eventually I'll end up with something that is cylindrical. Then I turn it over, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the top part as well, just trimming around the edges so that I lose that sort of squareness, if you like, and keep going, just being patient, and eventually I'm going to end up with something like that. So I'm going to make the potato dish now. We're going to hand slice these potatoes. Anybody who's not doing level 2 diploma can use a mandolin. In front of me here I've got a jug of clarified butter, and that's going to stick our slices of potatoes together. Okay, so being really careful, I'm going to slice these as thin as I possibly can. So they need to be really, really thin, almost crisp thickness if possible. You can see how I'm using my finger as a guide to cut them, and if you look at that really, really carefully, you can see how thin that is. So I'm going to slice both these potatoes into that sort of thickness. So I've sliced the potatoes and I've put them into the clarified butter, and I'm going to really, really carefully start to layer these potatoes, and I'm just going around the greaseproof paper so that they're overlapping really, really quite tightly. Okay, if I don't have them overlapping tightly, the potatoes are likely to fall apart when I attempt to get it off the greaseproof paper. Now I'm going to do this in 2 layers, and in between the first and the second layer I'm going to season. I'm not going to put too much salt on because I'm using salted butter, okay, but I am going to put a reasonable amount of black pepper onto there. So first layer almost complete. If you feel that any of them are too thick at all, well then don't use them, okay? Only use your thinnest pieces, otherwise you'll end up with a product that definitely will fall apart, and what we want is it for all to stay in one piece on the top of our duck dish. So here's the salt and pepper, a little bit of salt, not too much, but quite a decent amount of pepper. And as I said, I'm going to put another layer of potatoes over the top of these ones, and then I'm going to bake these in the oven about 180 degrees, and they're going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. So in the end I ended up making 2 of these Anna potatoes. You can see that they're slightly different sizes, and I've done that for a reason, because I don't know what size my duck breast is going to turn out. I want it to be similar size to the duck breast once it comes out of the pan, and obviously there's going to be some shrinkage. So I've done one that's slightly larger and one that's slightly smaller. I've got a preheated oven, it's on about 180. I might have to turn it up slightly to about 190, something like that. And I'm going to pop that in there, probably for about 10 to 15 minutes. When it comes out, I'm going to press the potatoes with a brick, greaseproof over the top of the potatoes, brick on top, and I'm going to blast chill them briefly so that they're set together. And I'm aware that everybody might not have at home a house brick, but any heavy weight would do the job. So as I said before, this is a vegetable called Salsify. You don't see it very often, but it's one of those vegetables where as soon as we peel it, it'll start to discolour. So we need to put it straight into acidulated water, so essentially water with lemon juice, just to stop it discolouring. And as you can see, it's a little bit floppy, so we peel it on the bench. So just using an ordinary peeler, and just a little bit at a time, peel it until we get all the outside peel off. Once we've got all the outside peel off, I've then cut it into lengths. I've put it into a vacuum pack bag with some lemon and some thyme and some garlic, and that's gone into the steamer for about 20 minutes. So these should be just al dente, and they're very, very pale in colour, but I'm going to colour these in the remains of the duck fat after I've pan fried the duck. On this tray in front of me, we've also taken some peelings of the peeled Salsify, and we've just deep fried it, so it's almost like a string, if you like, of Salsify, which is really, really nice crisp, and it could be a nice little garnish to go on top of the duck dish.